Well, by my clock, it's 9 o'clock. So we will call this regular meeting of the Houston County Board to order, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And with that, we are in session. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or omissions or changes that should be made? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Got a motion, is there a?
Greg seconded it.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. Motion carries. Next item, approve the previous minutes. First being the board meeting, April 13th, 2021.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next is the work group session from April 20th of 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve the work group session minutes.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item of business is public comment. We have a number of people with us this morning, so public comment. I don't hear anybody jumping in. In which case, with no public comment, we will move on to the COVID-19 update for public health.
Morning, Commissioners. Today I'm going to hand it off to Heather, a different face to hear from. She usually chimes in anyway, but she's got a few things that she wants to touch on, and I may make some comments as well. So I'm going to hand it over to Heather.
Hello, good morning. Just a few things to update you on. I'm sure you may be aware we've seen some increase in cases over about the last week, maybe not quite a week. Those cases we're seeing the increase in middle school and high school students right now. There are some assumptions that they're tied to variants. When a case does test positive, we don't know necessarily that it's a variant case, and all positive cases are randomly sampled and then they're sent on for kind of sequencing and typing to determine if a variant was identified in that specimen. So if someone does test positive, they are generally through their isolation and recovered by the time any specimen is determined to be a variant, and they're not tied to an individual per se. So that's kind of what we're seeing in school. So we're staying connected with them and trying to offer them the support and information that they need to make their decisions in their district. One thing that is, I think, I think a good piece of news is we're seeing some vaccine saturation, both locally and regionally, in our county and in Southeast Minnesota. So that's a good thing that individuals, our residents are having multiple access points to vaccine, which that could mean our healthcare partners, which have been, very, very successful in vaccinating our Houston County residents and creating access there. There's local pharmacies, there's some regional pharmacies that are doing that, some big box type store pharmacies. We encourage people to call them if they're seeking vaccination there. And there are some community clinics across the river that are popping up and have vaccine availability appointments for individuals to pick from. There was a pause, I don't remember the exact date, so forgive me for that, on the J&J vaccine. As we begin to move forward with that again, we're not quite sure yet what the impact will be here. We have not heard from MDH definitively on the supply or allocation that we would receive from that, if any. So we are kind of in a, we know that is looking like it's going to move forward. How that will be impacted here, we just don't quite know that. We do have a large clinic scheduled for this Thursday, which is a second dose clinic. So individuals that would have received their first dose about a month ago will be coming to see us on Thursday. So that's kind of in a nutshell, unless anyone has any other questions or comments. Yeah.
It's just are we still getting information from the clinics across the river when they provide the shots? Are they counted in our tally? And is our tally still over about 77,000?
Oh, I don't know if John has looked at the numbers. I do know that from my understanding, our healthcare partners do enter those into MIC, which is our Minnesota Immunization Information Connection, similar to Wisconsin has their WEIR for immunization. So sometimes there can be a bit of a delay or a bit of a disconnect with that, but for the most part, we are seeing that those are being counted because of the sheer number and percentage of Houston County residents that are shown. We know, we've tried to do our fair share, but we know we haven't done all of those. So those numbers are certainly our healthcare partners stepping up and helping to support that effort.
Yeah, I think to add to those comments, I'd say that, throughout our experience with the pandemic, information back and forth between states has been a challenge. For the most part, we believe that people who are receiving their vaccines across the river are counted in the state and county of residence. But sometimes that data is a little bit lagging, just like the counts of people who were tested for COVID. Sometimes those numbers lagged a bit as well. As it relates to vaccines, as of yesterday, we had 62% of the 16 and over population in Houston County had received vaccine. That puts us 5th in the state. And the 65 and older population is 95%, which puts us 3rd in the state. And the total population, when compared, to the whole population, including those who aren't yet approved for vaccine, we're at 50%, and that puts us at 5th in the state. All of those are really good numbers, comparatively good numbers. But as we've discussed in some other forums, the goal we all have in vaccine is to reach herd immunity. And, I've heard anywhere from 70 to 85% before we're looking at herd immunity. And that would be of the total population. The cases that we're seeing growth in school-age children are people, those are individuals who can't currently get vaccinated. I think all vaccines are working on, tests and things for whether we would be able to provide vaccine for that school-age population. So while we're really encouraged that, our county has done a remarkable job, our folks in public health and human services have been great. chipped in. It's been a real community effort because we've also had lots of volunteers. And so as a result, we're doing comparatively really well. But we still have a ways to go. And I think Heather's saying we've reached the point of saturation. It isn't that everybody has it, it's that everybody that really wants it has gotten it. And so our last 2 first dose vaccine clinics, we were not able to fill all of our slots. One of those we thought was associated with the fact that the same day we were offering our first Johnson & Johnson clinic, and that there appeared to be quite a bit of interest in a one-shot approach. As everybody knows, that since got a pause due to some side effects regarding blood clotting and things that the CDC and the EPA has looked into, and it's since been reintroduced. And so, as Heather said, we're waiting to see what that will mean in Minnesota, and specifically what it'll mean for us. But the most important outcome of all of this is we currently don't have any new first dose clinics planned. So we were doing first dose clinics every week for quite some time. But since we're not able to fill those appointments, it doesn't make sense for us to keep getting vaccine if we're not using it. And once we thaw it out, or specifically once we crack a vial, we've got a very short time frame to be able to use that before it's wasted. So as Heather mentioned, we have this week and I think next week we've got 2 more second dose clinics that'll happen at the Four Seasons. But we're waiting to see what happens with Johnson & Johnson. That may lead to us doing another Johnson & Johnson clinic. We are evaluating what our strategy needs to be from this point forward, because it's a change in the population that we're serving. The first part of this was people who were very, very eager to get vaccinated. And we've reached a point where people are on the fence or maybe even opposed. And so from a public health perspective, what should be our strategy going forward? And that's what we're kicking around. As we have more meat to put on that bone, we'll be sharing that with the board. Heather, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Oh, not right now, unless there's other questions.
I have one. Heather, you mentioned earlier with regard to the variant and the testing after the information is submitted, that people are well over their time period before the answer comes back as far as what type of variant and whatnot. Why does it take so long?
Well, they pull random samples of positive tests, so they don't type and sequence every positive. And so my assumption, without actually knowing, is because of the lab that they need to send it to and the different tests that they need to do, because there's a number of variants that they look for and type for. So I'm just assuming it's merely the length of time it takes to look at all of the variants to see how many or which one or ones would be included in those samples. I can certainly look into that further and ask our regional epidemiologist, but I think doing that and looking for the variants is something that, maybe that will speed up eventually and have a little bit more timeliness impact. But
Yeah.
It just seems like, you got to quarantine and you're out of quarantine before you even know.
absolutely. Yep. I agree. If someone is infected and it is a variant strain, whatever they have transmitted then has been transmitted as a variant. So
I think the guidance from the state for quarantine and isolation isn't any different with a variant case. It's just, if you have a positive test, that guidance it hasn't recently changed. I hear what you're saying, Bob. It's hard to do the contact tracing when you don't know until the person has recovered and it's after the fact. What I'll say to that also is, just like we've been saying all along, COVID is spreading through the community, through the state, through the region, through the country. through community transmission. Same story with variants. There in many counties, including Houston County, we've had incidences of variants. And so we're hopeful that a higher percentage of vaccine will keep those numbers down. But that's what the big race is: get enough people vaccinated before there are enough variations of the virus that it's harder to get on top of it.
Thank you. Any other questions for John or Heather? Hearing none, we will move on. Thank you for the updates.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next item of business is a Houston County Libraries and Selco presentation. I think we've got all the librarians from Houston County, and I see Krista here. So whoever's doing the talking, let her go.
All right. Good morning, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Casey Gentry. I am the director at the La Crescent Public Library. We also have the directors on from our Houston Public Library, Hoka Public Library, Spring Grove, and Caledonia, as well as Krista Ross, who is the executive director of Selco, which is our regional library consortium. It covers 11 counties. So we are here this morning. Thank you for having us to do a couple of things. First, we are required by our contract to provide you guys with our statistics for the past year. So I have all of those. And then we want to talk about the support that we're going to be getting from Houston County going forward from here. So would anyone mind if I shared my screen? I think that'd be the easiest way.
No.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm going to share screen. Does everybody see our library statistics?
Yeah.
So we have listed here all of our key metrics from the previous year. This year that was unlike any other in library service. But what we can learn from this is that we did a really good job of reaching people at a time that it was difficult to reach people. Yeah, we had some declines in our physical circulation, but we had increases in our downloadable circulation. So that's people checking out ebooks on their home devices. We saw entirely new kinds of programs that we've never done before, which are these, we did more online programming than we ever had. We did more self-directed activities. So that's something like we are setting something up for people to do on their own. So we did tons of take and go craft and STEM kits. So where families with children can come in a no contact pickup and get these items, take them home, and their kids can work on crafts, can work on science projects. We had lots of virtual attendance to our programs. A special shout out to Caledonia that had literally thousands of people attend their story times and their online events. So it was really just, it was a difficult year for libraries, but we learned a lot, and we're all very, very proud of the new things that we've been able to accomplish this year that, were not like any other. We also have, if you're more of a graphically organized type person, we down so you can see, different libraries sort of played to different strengths. Again, Caledonia is here in blue with their fabulous, fabulous virtual attendance. La Crescent, which did have a little bit more stronger turnout in terms of our in-person, wireless sessions from our parking lot, contactless visits that were the ones in yellow. But everybody really worked very, very hard this year. So we are happy to answer any questions about our new formats, some of the things that we're planning to continue on. A lot of us are talking about what kind of programs we want to be doing virtually even after the pandemic. We found that there are some people that have said, hey, I really like that I can come to the library's, community discussion. I get home from work, I've already had dinner. Now I don't want to get back in my car and drive back to the library. I want to sit at my dining room table and participate. So we're having a lot of interesting discussions about, even if the pandemic was entirely solved tomorrow, the things that we've learned in the past year aren't going to go away. And that's both scary and exciting. So those are our statistics. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions about the stats we're required to provide you, our new stats, or any of the programs or anything that we've done this past year? Is there anything I can answer for that?
Nope.
Nope.
Not yet.
then I'll just keep talking. So the other reason that we wanted to come, and those of you who were part of our discussions last year will remember this. So last year, when we were setting up our funding contract from the county, we moved into small group and we really said, you know, we want to really address, over many years, the Houston County participation has been a lot lower than the support that we've gotten from our cities. And we really want to work on leveling that playing field. And so we met in small group last year and we really identified 3 primary areas of service in our libraries and of need in our libraries that are being pretty significantly underfunded. That is our collection, so that's our physical items, our money to buy books and movies and audiobooks and puzzles and anything that people come to the library, check out, and take home. The other one that we had a real need in is our technology. We had, you know, I started at the La Crescent Public Library a little over a year and a half ago, and we didn't just have computers that weren't running Windows 10. We had a computer for patron use that was running Vista. Like, that's a real long time in computer land. So we talked about, you know, the technology needs that we have, the need to have computers that are functional, that, you know, our patrons can use comfortably, that aren't, you know, 10 years old. And then the third area that we really talked about was our personnel. So we are pretty chronically understaffed in our libraries, and the pay at the libraries has been a real pain point for us because it's difficult to retain staff. So we identified those 3 areas and kind of said, okay, what are we going to do about them? And the group sort of came to the consensus, well, you know, this is a very uncertain year. There was concern about what was going to happen with the LGA grants, you know, what was going to happen with funding and taxes. And, you know, we just decided, okay, let's table this for a year and let's come back next summer and figure out what we're going to do from there. So that brings us to today. So we said, okay, we want to start addressing these areas, sort of tackling these problems one by one. And we as the directors met 2 weeks ago, and we sort of said, okay, where do we want to start? And the feeling was really that we would really like to start with the personnel side, because if we've learned nothing else over the past year, we've really learned, like, the old adage is true. The library's most valuable resource is the one that goes home at the end of the day. I mean, you know, the collection is wonderful and the technology is wonderful, but if we don't have the staff, we can't do anything. And this year, I mean, we've had staff doing no contact pickup. We've had staff figuring out how to do story times from their basements. We've had staff in some libraries delivering items to patron homes, delivering items to group homes when their patients couldn't safely leave. So we really want to take this opportunity to address the needs that we have. Just for some background information, I think, you know, we shared some of this in our group, in the small group last year, but I think it's valuable for, you know, the whole board to hear. I think people were a little bit surprised at just how small our staff are and our man hours are. So of the 5 library directors that work in Houston County, 4 out of the 5 are not full-time, and that's defining full-time as 36 hours. Most of our libraries have no full-time staff because we can't afford it. The vast majority of our staff don't get any kind of benefits, like, you know, they're not eligible for things like the para retirement fund. Some of us are not eligible for sick pay, things like that. Some of our directors are working as little as 25 hours a week, and 25 hours a week is not really enough to run a library. We also have an issue with our wages. For the director staff, our current wages range from $18.34 an hour to $25.38 an hour. And again, that's per hour, assuming that you don't get to work full time. And that includes at least 1 director with more than 20 years of service. So the person not at the top of that pay scale has been working in their position for more than 20 years. That's a long time. But the real pain point, we get into libraries knowing that we're never going to get rich working in libraries, but at the same time, we do need to be paying fairly for the work that we're doing. An even bigger pain point is our paraprofessional staff. So that is our library aides, our library assistants, our clerks. Some of our library clerks are making literally minimum wage. The majority of the 5 libraries have at least 1 staff person that is making less than $10.75 an hour. That's within spitting distance of minimum wage. we only have, in all 5 of our libraries, we only have 1 non-director employee that has paid sick time or vacation time or health insurance. Everyone else who works in the libraries does not. And the real problem with that is, A, we're asking people to do much more work now than they've ever had before. I mean, even, one thing that we've noticed in the libraries in this past year is even when you're working the same number of hours, it's one thing if you have to work the desk and people are coming in and selecting their books off the shelf and bringing them to you and saying like, here, check these out, here's my card. Then if someone is constantly calling and you have to bring them to them outside, like we're doing a lot more work for the same amount of, or even less service that patrons are really feeling. And that's been trying on the staff. So we really want to address this because we're having a real issue attracting and retaining quality staff, especially in those paraprofessional positions, because the levels of pay and the levels of hours are so low. It's very difficult to retain people with good customer service skills when they can literally make more money working at Quick Trip or at Culver's, who both have starting wages higher than we do. And again, we can't say enough that we've seen over the past year that nothing impacts the quality of library service as much as the dedication and the competence of the staff. If we have no other resources, the human resource of the library is invaluable to us and to all of the Houston County residents that we're serving. So we would like to talk about how we're going to address these staffing needs, and we would like to ask for an increase in support to be divided among the 5 libraries among all of the staff of $40,000. Sounds like a lot of money, but that is enough. We are talking about 14 different library employees spread over 5 buildings with 303 man hours per week. So that $40,000 is enough for, if we were to divide it completely evenly, it would be enough for every person working in the library to get a raise of $2.54 an hour. We divided it up exactly like that because obviously the people who are higher on the pay scale would get less or possibly none. The people who are on the lower end of the pay scale would get more. But that is, if we were to just give a raise, a blanket across the board, bringing people up a level of wages, that would get us $2.54 an hour for all of our staff. Again, that does not address the hours situation. So that's not saying anybody who's working 15 hours now can now work 20, or anybody who's working, 32 can now get to that 36 level where they might get benefits. That is just saying, if we're going to raise these wages, this is how much money we need to do it. So we do realize that that's a large ask. That's not a small amount of money, but that is where we'd like to start. We have talked amongst ourselves. We as the library directors are very, very, very happy to go back into those small group sessions. We got a little bit of a start on that last year, but it was just decided that 2020 was not the right time for those conversations to be happening. We would be most happy to pick those up where we left off. So the ball is really in the board's court. If you guys would like to come back with a proposal for us, with a counter proposal at your next meeting, if we would all like to go directly to those small groups, we await your decisions. Is there anything else I can answer?
I'll ask a couple of questions.
Go for it.
First off, with regard to the 2020 library statistics,
Mm-hmm.
you know what the increase is versus 19?
It depends. So there are some categories that we didn't, that we weren't tracking in 2019. So there are some brand new categories on here. Things like virtual program, virtual attendance, virtual programs, virtual program attendance, pre-recorded programs, and pre-recorded program views. Those are all things that we've never historically tracked because up until last year, those were very, very rare. It wasn't very common for us to do story time online. Some are up, some are down. Physical circulation is definitely down for all 5 of the libraries, and that's something that we're seeing at least statewide, if not nationwide, because people weren't, they weren't going out, they weren't running as many errands, they weren't physically coming into the libraries. Some of us were closed for some or, more or less time last year. We all did see our downloadable circulation increase. Like I said, in terms of the total circulation, I don't think that the increase in downloadable circulation is enough to make up for the drop we saw in physical circulation, but then we did see a lot of increases in especially those new categories. Another one would be contactless visits, so that, in past we have just this library visits number, so that's how many people come to the library. But it was determined that for the purposes of reporting to the state, if someone comes to the library but does not interact with any staff, that doesn't count. So if you are doing curbside pickup, or here at La Crescent, we have a table set up outside that you can call, we'll set your materials on the table and you can come and get them so you don't have to physically interact with anyone else. It was determined that those didn't count. So our library visits looked like they declined significantly because we couldn't count, in some cases, several thousand contactless visits. So I would say that we're down in probably more metrics than we're up. But then you have metrics that we've never previously tracked that are significant, which is probably a lot to say. There isn't really an answer.
Sure. So with regard to the 40,000, that's increase over and above what we did last year for the libraries. Does this go through Selco and back to you, or is this?
So it passes through Selco, but it goes directly to all of our libraries.
So this
Selco portions out the money to us based on an agreement that the 5 of us form. You want to say something about that?
I'm just asking, this goes through Selco, but is Selco going to have a presentation for an increase to Selco direct besides?
No, the counties haven't funded directly for Selco since the bookmobile ceased operations in 2004, 2005. So we just merely act as the fiscal agent for the county and the libraries to kind of ease. You get one bill from us, we send checks out. You don't have to get 5 bills and send 5 checks out. So.
Right.
And I assume all 5 libraries in Houston County have a board of directors. And are they not the ones in charge of the budget and whatnot? So if there's additional money in the budget, it's the library board that determines what the wages are going to be?
It varies a little from library to library, but so for example, and other library colleagues, feel free to chime in. So at La Crescent, I write the budget and then it has to be approved by the board and approved by my city council. But typically, at least in every library I've worked in, the director is the first point of sort of generation of that budget, and then it's subject to approval. Do any of the other directors want to chime in on that? Anybody do it differently?
Same for Caledonia. It all goes through the board. We initially propose and then it goes through the board.
Standard practice in Houston as well.
Yeah.
My question is so the board determines the number of hours and the board also determines the pay. We're just supporting it with a budgeted item.
Shall I take that question, Casey? It's Liz from the Houston Public Library.
Go for it, Liz.
The libraries have 2 basic streams of income. One is support from the cities that host them, and there are 5 cities here in Houston County. And then the money that comes in from the counties. And this is something that, we've given you statistics in the past about and can certainly do again in a small group. But the per capita support from the cities is much higher than the per capita support we're getting from Houston County to subsidize those Houston County citizens who do not live in the cities that support libraries. So all of our clients, 99% of our clients are Houston County clients. We're just kind of talking about contributions from Caledonia City, La Crescent City, Hoka City, Houston, and Spring Grove versus then what the county comes back and donates on behalf of the other people. And one of the things that we've talked about over the years, and this year in particular, we're trying to work hard to bridge the gap between the city contributions and the contributions from the county. And I have statistics from 2019 that show that the Caledonia per capita support for citizens who live in that city is $27.49 per person. For La Crescent, I think it's $29.76. Hoka, $34.08. Houston, we're just under $40 at $39.92. And Spring Grove actually has one of the highest in all of Selco coming in at $80.03 per capita support, again, for citizens who live in that city. On the other hand, the support that comes from Houston County is much lower. I think we logged in just around, I think it was like 1966 or just under 20 for 2021. So you can see also, if we were subtracting the people who live in the cities and just looking at the remainder of Houston County residents, they're getting the same service when they walk into the doors of the library, but they're not equally sharing the costs of funding the libraries depending on where they live. And this really places a very unfair financial burden on the residents of the 5 cities that host the libraries, even though we're serving all Houston County patrons. So one thing that we have been trying to work on is to bring up that per capita support from the county from, just below 20 up to, the average for the cities is actually $42.26. And I think we're talking about around 8,000 people that live outside of the 5 cities. That would be about a $5 per person increase. And still that per county contribution would be lower than any of the 5 cities currently contribute to the libraries. So that's another way to look at this problem, is trying to equalize where the money comes from that supports these libraries, because we are serving all residents of Houston County. They're just not paying for it equally. Did that answer the question?
Question for you, Liz, then, with regard to your numbers. How do you determine the amount of support per capita?
It's the number of people, for example, that live in the city of Houston divided into the actual contribution that the city of Houston makes.
So what's Houston, 1,100, 1,200?
We're just, right, I think last time, I don't know if we were 979 or just around 1,000, yeah.
Call it 1,000. And
Yeah.
what'd you say Houston's per capita is?
The Houston's is $39.92 per person as an average. It's a per capita average.
$39.92 times 1,000.
Right.
They participate $390,000.
That would be $39,000.
Okay. All right.
What's the per cap? What's the rate again? $29 for Houston?
For Houston, the per capita contribution is $39.92
Okay.
average. And as I was saying, Caledonia is about 27, La Crescent's almost 30, Spring Grove's almost 80. The county's contribution, per capita contribution, is just under $20 per person.
So what is the total?
Trying to bridge that gap between the two.
What is the total dollars for Caledonia, Holka, Houston, La Crescent, Spring Grove? Do you have that figure?
I have the individual figures from 2019. There's always a little bit of a lag here, but certainly this is the kind of stuff I think we would bring to you guys in a small committee where it would make more sense to be pouring over it. But Caledonia's city contribution in 2019 was $77,000, La Crescent 153, Holka just under 19, Houston 39, Spring Grove 103. So, again, that average for the 5 cities is $42.26 per person. Again, the county's coming in at just under 20. So really half. A person who walks in the door who lives, like me. I live out in Winnebago Valley. I walk into a library. The support I'm paying as an individual is half of what somebody who lives in a city is paying. And we've talked about this a lot. But our regular 3% increases have not really brought us any closer to solving this problem. And the dollars that would come into our budgets if the county were to increase their contribution to the level of the cities would allow us to solve these 3 major problems we've identified, whether it's personnel, technology, or collection development.
What is the county?
It's not. Oh, sorry. Can I just contribute one more thing to what Liz was just saying? Sorry. I know it might look strange when you're looking at one of the smaller cities like Houston or Holka and their contribution, but City of La Crescent has about 5,000 people in it, just under that. And we got last year for 2020 support from our city was $153,000. The support from Houston County for all 5 libraries together was 165,
977.
165. So City of La Crescent, with its just under 5,000 people, is paying more to support one library, is paying almost as much to support one library as the entire county board is to support 5 for all of the citizens that live outside of the cities, which is significantly a significantly larger number. So when you look at that, it looks like more of an apples to apples comparison.
Do you take the population of the cities away from the population of the county so that you're not counting the city residents already? We're paying.
Yes, we do.
Yes. When we talk about in our annual report, they're listed as rural patrons, and that just means someone residing in Houston County, but outside of the 5 cities.
Wouldn't it be fair to say that most of the people, I shouldn't say most, a majority of the people that live in the cities use the library more than the rural people, or is that not correct?
I don't know that you can say that, especially in terms of frequency of visits, probably yes, but I don't know that in terms of, because also another thing is, at least at La Crescent, I've noticed that we have a larger number of our rural patron families that are, for example, homeschooling families. They may not live in the city and they don't live closer to a school, they prefer to homeschool. So those are families that they may not visit twice a week the way some of our local families do, but they'll come in once every 2 weeks and they'll take, 30 or 40 items at a time. So it's not, it's definitely not the case that only the people who are living in the cities are getting regular use out of the libraries.
Casey, I believe that when we were in small groups last year, Bob, you asked this exact same question. And I believe you could probably find the documents we gave you at that time, or certainly we can find them and forward them on.
We can provide that information for you guys again.
But Bob asked the same question last year, and Casey, you did the statistical work that went back, and it actually showed the bulk of circulation actually goes outside of the cities. It was slightly more than the 5 cities together, but it was the majority of circulation is a rural circ, not a city circ. Bob and Teresa, do you remember that from last year in small group?
Yes.
Because we did provide you with that then.
Right.
And again, we are happy, you don't get into libraries unless you're willing to be a little bit of a nerd about it. So we are happy to provide any kind of, if you guys want, if we do end up going back into small groups, if you guys give us a list of, the documents that you think would be most helpful, we're happy to provide any information we can.
Well,
The rural have less access than the city folks. That I can understand that, because they might walk to the library, but anybody who comes from the rural area has to drive, and that makes a burden for them. So I can understand why the numbers might be a little bit lower.
Dewey, it's exactly the opposite we just said.
But I think Dewey's talking about the visits numbers.
Oh, visits. Okay, not search.
I would definitely say, someone who lives up the street might be here more frequently, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're checking more books, because the people who have to drive, they're the ones who take the big stack. They're the ones who are taking a whole carload at once, rather than just, I'm going to drop by for one item.
It's a destination, not a drive-by.
Yes, precisely.
Well, it's a drive-by now with curbside pickup.
Well, now it's all drive-bys. But are you drive-by with the little bag, or are you drive-by with the big bag?
But the amount that the county gives, $164,000 or whatever it is, it's divided between the city and the rural residents, because it's a tax levy, so everybody gets it. I mean, we have to levy for the money to give to Selco or to give to the libraries. So everybody, the city and the rural, all the townships, everybody's paying for it, including the cities.
Actually, no, the cities don't levy library. We don't spread levy out to those cities for our county levy.
We don't?
Because the cities are levying their own library. So when it comes to those cities, we don't levy library funds in those to those taxpayers.
So all the taxpayers are paying a levy, but if you live in the city, you're paying the city levy, and if you don't, you're paying the county library levy.
Right.
Right, yeah, that's been my understanding. Okay.
Previously, you mentioned some you need some computer updates. Are you able to take advantage of any of these grants for updating computer systems, like through the COVID CARES money and this and that, or not?
We've definitely gotten, well, let me say parts. We got money from the CARES Act, but it was only for things like PPE and things that helped us provide service outside of the building, or at least in the Crescent, that was the case. There's still a lot in the new one that just was passed in the last few months that hasn't really been divvied up yet. So we have not seen any of that money up to this point. We may or may not in the future, but that sort of hasn't been allocated in that way yet. The CARES Act, there was probably I think we had maybe a 3-month delay on being told exactly, okay, so the CARES Act's been passed. This is the point where we were told this is what you can spend that money on, this is what you can't, and this is how much you have. So we haven't really gotten to that point yet with the second round of stimulus.
Let me just weigh in on that for a minute. I'm Kirsten from the director of the Hoka Library, and the city of Hoka did receive some CARES money, but none of it was allocated to the library. The city had apparently other needs, and so it went to that. I hope that answers your question.
Did Solar Crescent City never allocated any money towards you, Casey?
Oh, they definitely did, yes.
Oh, okay.
Crescent definitely allocated money towards the library. It was a delay on what I was told I could spend that on. So I haven't heard yet. I know that there is for municipalities in the second round. I don't know, and the money from, what I'm saying is the money from the last round didn't pay for computers. It paid things like, masks for the staff and extra cleaning supplies and plexiglass barriers to go between the computers so multiple patrons could be using them at once with, lower transmission. That's the kind of stuff that the CARES Act money went to last time around, and I don't know what, if anything, we'll be able to spend new money on. And as Kirsten pointed out, not all of the cities that got money dedicated any of it to their libraries. So
the county did contribute the $10,250 to Selco that was split with them. And, it looks to me, although we haven't received a lot of guidance from Treasury, it looks like some of that might be able to be used again or allocated out that way, because it's to enhance distance, like say their online programs, or and which would tie back to computers, because
Right.
you need updated computers to make that stuff work. So I think there is probably the possibility. I haven't looked at the city information, but in the county information, that is a possibility too. So
That does not address the wages issue that we're talking about right now. If they get money from COVID or from this different source of funding that can be used for computers or whatnot, that's a one-time deal. We're talking that once it's approved, it's going to be an ongoing, it's an annual thing rather than the COVID one-time deal.
Yeah, if we approve the 40,000, it'll be, that's going to be ongoing. We'll be over 200,000.
That's right.
Divided among 5 buildings and 14 individuals. I know it seems a little daunting at first glance, but really, when you sit down and look at individual needs at different libraries, it is only beginning to address that problem. But we would be grateful for that start. It would be an important and impactful move on your part to fund us and allow us to keep working on the projects that are very dear to our heart, that I think we're all very driven in our positions and very committed to what we're doing, but we also recognize the need to eventually bridge this gap and bring the libraries up into the modern world in terms of the pay we're offering individuals and the hours we can give them to make these jobs, what's the word I want to say, sustainable.
I'm going to just throw in another 2 cents. I mean, I appreciate the information. I appreciate the, all the statistics and the information that you've provided and the $40,000 request. And that's something that the county board takes under advisement, but until we put the budget together in the fall, I don't know as we can commit to the 40,000 as we speak right now, from that perspective.
Oh, no, and yeah, and we knew, we know going to this, there's a set program, there's a set of steps for the contract. We know even if you guys were 100% on board at this exact moment, you can't vote on it today anyway, right? It's my understanding that the contract states that we have to make a presentation, and then at your next meeting, you guys make a determination whether you accept our proposal, whether you want to make a counter proposal, whether you want to go to the small group again. So that's sort of where we are today. Nothing has to be decided in the next 10 minutes. We just wanted to make sure that when we came today, we had as much information as we possibly could to offer you guys for your ongoing discussion.
Okay.
Which is what we take into consideration when we do our budget process over the summer. That preliminary is the end of September. So
we have in the past tried to work in small committee before then to reach sort of some kind of agreement, because we also have to have our budgets in the fall too. And you might remember one year where this slipped through the cracks and all of a sudden it was September and we hadn't resolved our negotiations. So I think it would behoove us all to work on this during the spring and early summer so we know where we all are for late summer, fall, as we all go into our own budget, committee meetings.
Well, a 25% increase is we're gonna have to fit that in if we were to do it in our whole budget process. I don't know how we could speed that up or not, but.
But we'd always rather start the discussions earlier, and then if it does take, a longer time, then we're prepared for that. But I mean, this is about when we started. I think last year we moved we came to a meeting in April, and then we started in the small group in May.
Okay.
And we can do that again.
Well, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity to come and share what we're doing with you guys. So if there's anything else we can answer, you have all of our contact information. We are all 5 of us available to you. I'm sure Krista is happy to help. If there's anything else you need, any new versions of the documents we prepared for last year, we are at your service.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
You guys too. Thank you. Well, it's 9:54 by my clock. We've got a 10 o'clock public hearing. I don't know how much we can get done on the consent agenda. In 5 minutes.
Should we do a little recess and then come back at 10 or not?
We can do that.
Okay.
Coffee break.
Recess.
Coffee break.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It's Liz from the Houston Library. Is Casey around? Thank you. You did a great job. You did a great job. You know what? I thought it was interesting. They didn't even switch. Like nobody even said that's an impossibility. That you were right after all. We just need to come out and do it. I think that thing with the salaries and stuff really got to them. Right, and it's the equivalent of raising the 8,000 people who don't live in a city in Houston County, a city with a library in Houston County. It's $5 a person. $5 a person. I fucking know. So I'm not really sure where we left negotiations, but it didn't seem like they were really objecting to the amount. It was just figuring out where it was going to come from or something.
We can hear some background noise, just so everyone knows that some are not muted.
Yep, it's coming. Come on. Okay. It being 10 o'clock, we have a public hearing for the Houston County Ordinance Number 9, Park Rules and Regulations for Wildcat Park. I believe everybody is back. Right. So we will open the public hearing and take public comment with regard to the proposed changes to Houston County Ordinance Number 9, Park Rules and Regulations. Who would like to speak? The changes are rather minor. I got it right
I
here.
believe the only thing that, pretty much minor, like you said, and it has been posted, so people have seen it. We don't need to go through it.
Right. The biggest changes is it's all under Appendix C, other than the redating for the ordinance change. But the policy, as far as it's the first one talks about the changes in number of campsites, where the original talked about the 20-some, and now we're going up to 35 campsites. And at one time, any lottery applicant could not take the same spot back. We removed that line item and now say that anybody that is chosen in the lottery that has a site can take the same site back. And they also would be allowed to trade. The prior ordinance did not allow trades between campers. Now if they are drawn and have a campsite and want to trade with somebody else that's in agreement to the trade, they can trade campsites within the 2 weeks after the lottery with notification. It has to be a signed agreement between the two parties with a notification to the park manager. And that's really the major changes to the ordinance.
So I get an understanding of this. Current camper there now is in the lottery and they get chosen. They can't keep that site that they have or can't choose that site. Is that right?
Under current ordinance, if you were in the lottery and you got chosen, you could not take the same campsite back.
You have to take a different one.
Different one.
And the reason for that is
Beats me.
okay.
But it's being changed in this version,
Right.
where you can do that. You can keep the same one now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, that's that was my question. Okay. It used to be that way. It's not that way in this new one. Okay.
Right.
If approved, then it's not. You can take the same one back.
Okay.
The reason for that, Eric, was the Corps initially did not want people to claim ownership of the sites. They wanted them to move to kind of get rid of some of that ownership mentality.
Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any public comment? I know, Michelle, you were asking questions, so I thought maybe you might have a public comment to the ordinance change.
No, I appreciate Brian's response back to help me understand. So when people come up to me, I can at least say what's going on.
Okay.
I just wanted to add to this is Don. I just wanted to add that if you do get into the lottery and you want to swap or switch sites, in this new ordinance, it says that within 2 weeks of the lottery, without prior approval of the Parks Committee, they can fill out, the campers can fill out a form that can be signed by the park manager with notification of the site swapping and signed by both parties and the park manager. And then so that the park manager can notify the county auditor as to who's switching which sites. So it's just a 2-week period within that lottery that the sites can be swapped and switched.
So the park committee is going to handle all this, right? The lottery and
The park committee, the auditor will handle the lottery, and letters will be sent out prior notifying all the campers and of the application process and that sort of thing.
The existing campers as well as the ones on the list waiting. for the
Yes.
lottery to see if they
There's
get-
19 people on the list currently right now, and 35 campers we have filled all 35 campsites for 2021. So we'll be sending letters to 35 campers plus the 19 on the waiting list and extras if others apply or call in the meantime.
so do you have a big enough hat, Donna, to fit all those names?
Oh yeah, big basket.
Somebody should have been a campsite for 20 years. They could be out the door then.
Yep.
Possibility.
When you're going to rent out 35 sites you're putting in the lottery?
Yes, all 35 sites going to lottery. The application form has a listing on it of 35 sites. When you fill out your application for the lottery, you can put in your choices from 1 to 35. And if you are drawing and your first 4 choices are gone, you get the 5th one because that's what you asked for, based on the listing. When we have the lottery, if they want to be present and ask what sites are available, that's fine too. It is assumed that we will have more than 35 participants.
And you could have 55.
Right.
Correct.
Or we could have 30.
Well, yeah.
If we have 30, we'll do the lottery for those 30, and the 5 sites that are left over are open to the public, first come, first serve.
So if all the sites are full and everything's going good, why are we going to do a lottery to screw it all up maybe?
First reason is the ordinance calls for it. We're supposed to have a lottery every 4 years. Goes to what Brian Pogozinski had just said, is that the Corps does not want people that have been on, let's take the example of somebody that's been there for 15 years. They think that's their site. It's not. The Corps doesn't want people to think that they have ownership of the site, and they required us to have the lottery every 4 years in order to make sure that the general public has an opportunity to participate in the campground as it is federal land, based on the Corps of Engineers. So they wanted us to have the lottery. We've been lackadaisical over the years as far as having the lottery. And we were going to have one last year, but decided because of COVID and the problems that presented, we would not have a lottery till this year, but told the Corps we would have a lottery. At our last Parks Committee meeting, the Corps was there and said it was good that we were going to have the lottery and going to do that. Plus the fact our agreement with the Corps comes due for reapproval next year in 2022. Now, the guy from the Corps said that it was 99.9% likely that we would have a renewal, but his boss was under the impression that we should have the lottery.
So we fill those sites and let's say I don't get a spot. Can I go to the backside or is for a permanent spot, or do I have to go to another campground?
Now, what do you mean? If you don't get a spot?
In spots, let's say we have there's 35 spots plus the 19 people, all of them are going into the lottery. So let's say there are 10 people that don't get a spot. What are you going to do with those 10 people?
We can put them on a list. And
for 4 years?
if there are spots available after the lottery, the first one of the 10 that shows up and wants a spot, it's going to be a first come, first served basis.
Okay.
After that, if all 35 spots are full, those that did not win in the lottery, let's put it that way, are chosen in the lottery, can have their name put on the list for the next time we have a lottery or the next time there's an open slot. I mean, what? Go ahead, Brian. You're muted.
Yes, I can add just a little bit. The south side sites, those are based on a first come, first served reservation up to, I believe, 1 month at a time. Technically, there's no guarantee that you can have it all season. If someone requests that site, they can be forced to move off. But if there's sites available on the south end, if you're the first one to reserve it, there's no reason why you can't be down there throughout the season. So you're not forced to find a different location if there's availability on the south end. It's just not guaranteed all year, every year.
Be a month to month.
Yeah, month to month. You pay electricity is included with that rate on there. There's a little bit differences, but you'd work through Jake on that end.
Right, and that's where I started from. I started on that side, and finally I got a spot on the other side. So this is all new to me.
Is there any way we can prioritize this to Houston County residents? I could see Wisconsin residents get a hold of this, and we could have 100 people in the lottery. And I suppose it'd be a nightmare to try to do, but this is Houston County. Would it be feasible to give some priority to them?
We had talked about that at our Parks Committee meeting. The Corps of Engineers feels that as it's federal land, we shouldn't prioritize anybody. So we could have somebody from Florida that puts their name in the lottery and have just as much of an opportunity as a Houston County resident. Because the park revenue can't be used to fund Houston County. It can be only used for the park.
Right.
So the Corps is of the opinion that nobody should get an advantage over anybody else.
Also, there was discussion of those who've been there some length of time to, that's the name in the ballot or box, and, you know, everybody's equal.
That was the Corps' opinion.
Can we do a deal with the Corps where we don't have to do this lottery? It seems like it could open up a big can of worms. A lot of headaches.
Well, it opens a can of worms, I'll tell you that. There's a definite big can of worms open, but
Maybe we should negotiate that with the Corps, that we don't need to do this lottery. It's gonna get to be quite a mess, I think.
it is a mess.
So maybe we could,
We've avoided for the last 15 years, 15 years, yeah, since the last lottery.
I don't blame them for not doing it. I mean, it's a mess. It's gonna be a mess. I think we should try to work something with the Corps out, see if we can get around that.
Since our agreement with the Corps comes due next year, we can see if we can change this to eliminate the lottery aspect of it. But their whole idea is that they don't want people to think it's their spot. It's a public spot, and periodically other people of the public should have an opportunity to enjoy the campsite and the river aspect of it and whatnot. I mean, Wildcat's a very popular place because of the fact that it's on the river and whatnot, and people enjoy that, and you know, the scenery and whatnot, and the access for their boats. And the Corps doesn't want people to think that because they've been there a long time, it's their spot. It's not. It's the Corps spot. We manage it, and other people should have the opportunity. Michelle?
Why isn't the Corps on here on this meeting?
Because it's a public hearing to change the ordinance, and the Corps, this is a county ordinance, Corps has nothing.
But that's all we're talking about is the Corps. That's why it's kind of hard to follow.
Gesundheit. It was the Corps that, when the original agreement came to be, had the input as to the lottery aspect of it, because they don't want, like I said, people to think they take ownership of the spot. It's my spot. I've been there for years. I get to keep it forever. Same thing as far as not being able to put in gardens, not being able to put in sun porches on their campers, no permanent improvements and whatnot, because it's brand new, so to speak.
So when is our agreement?
Next year with the Corps?
Yeah, what, like it was first of the year or what?
I think it's July.
July of 22.
Mhm.
So Yeah, and we're going to do this lottery, what, January 22 or?
Oh, the lottery will take place on September 8th.
Of this year.
Correct.
Okay.
For the 22 year. But Shelley, I just wanted to add something else too. You know, in 2018, there were the Corps had contacted me, and they, you know, we talked back and forth, and they said they wanted to do a lottery, and I asked them. I said, well, even if we have very few people on the waiting list, and at that time in 18 there were only like 5 people, and then when I called all of them, there was probably like 1 or 2 that were really interested anymore. So we went back and forth, and they said, okay, as long as you only have 1 to 2 people, that's fine. We'll let you forgo the lottery this year. That was in 18. Then last year it was supposed to happen, and then with the COVID, it was in everybody's agreement that with the COVID and how it put a lot of stress on all the families and campers and whatnot and the whole works, just let it go and we'll hold it this year. So we pretty much made that agreement with them and promised that we would do that, for the reason being that they wanted to be open to the public. Anyone in the public could get a campsite if they applied and paid the fees, of course. So, you know, it may not, you know, like Bob said, you know, so there's maybe somebody from Florida or whatever, somebody from another, like La Crosse, but when it comes right down to it, if they don't pay the fees, put in their application in a timely manner, they will not be able to have a spot in the lottery or to be picked.
We're getting a little bit off topic here as far as the change to the ordinance, because it doesn't have anything to do with the lottery.
Yeah.
In history.
Yeah, this public hearing is just for changing of the ordinance.
Right. So, further discussion from the public with regard to the ordinance. Liz, your name, your box highlighted. Do you have anything? Okay, apparently not.
Yeah, anything in red is taken out or added. I mean, if this is strikes through, it's taken out. If it's not, it's being added. I think you pretty much summed it up.
Okay.
Can Liz mute herself there? We're getting
Liz Gibson, we're getting background noise from you. Can you put yours on mute?
Donna, are you able to mute her?
Yep, I'll try to mute it here.
Right.
Yep, so I didn't open up that ordinance revision. I did get asked by a couple people in the last week as far as the camper length down on the river sites. Has that been removed from the ordinance changes where it's going to be allowed to be 43 feet on the sites, on all sites?
Right.
Okay.
Donna, that got changed, right? On the final version? All 35 or 42-foot campers,
Yes.
including the tongue. Yeah.
Good.
Any other public comment? Then we will close the public hearing and move on to other business.
Do we need a motion to approve the ordinance?
That shows up later in action items.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Action 8.
Yep, I saw that.
So, you figured out how to mute Liz?
I got it. I got it.
Got it. The puppy was upset with us. Moving on to the consent agenda. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there are changes or issues that want to be moved on to action.
I think we should change, use line item number 5 and number 9 and 10 onto action items, just for some discussion.
Okay. 5, 9, and 10, is that what you said, Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
So 5 is the competitive services director. 9 is the Rick Frank. 10 is the contract with Winona County. I'll ask a question with regard to number 6. Are we appointing Amelia as the Houston County Zoning Administrator permanent, or is that an interim? The way it reads, it's a permanent appointment. Yes?
I read it.
With subsequent discussions that I've had, I think it should be interim, going along with her appointment as the interim county environmental services director. So those should all be interim.
So do we have to change that to an action item?
So, yeah, why are we doing both of those? We're doing an appointment for an interim environmental services director, and we're also doing an appointment for a county and zoning administrator.
Interim.
Well, it doesn't say that, like Bob said. So why wouldn't we just do a interim, a temporary appointment of environmental services director and leave it at that?
Well, we have to have somebody as a zoning administrator by state statute. So with Aaron leaving, we have to have.
Well, I know, but if she's environmental, the way we're set up now, the environmental services director does planning and zoning. I mean, this is
environmental services.
What's that?
They say planning and zoning does environmental services. Planning and zoning is higher up than environmental services. The planning and zoning director, a must by state statute, also takes care of environmental services.
Right.
Yeah, but Aaron is environmental services director. Isn't that his lead job description?
Planning and zoning. Zoning.
No, he's the environmental services director. That's his. Is that right, Tess?
He is, and at one point he was appointed, and maybe we are just overlapping things, but he was also appointed as the planning and zoning officer.
So he was that was an appointed position then, or
his appointed position was, the way I've always understood it, was taken up into the environmental services director. So when he took on the additional duties, they were added on top of his planning and zoning administrator, or zoning administrator.
Prior to Rick Frank
on those
leaving.
other additional duties. The department, we would like to see, initially, it was to appoint Amelia as the zoning administrator, since on a regular basis, ongoing basis. But since then the personnel committee met, it was my understanding that the committee wanted to do this on an interim basis until we had further conversation as to the structure of the department.
That's right. We just had a meeting yesterday, so.
Yes.
But this was put on the agenda before we had a personnel meeting, so.
Yeah, timing was not, was a challenge.
Dewey?
There are two different entities under one umbrella. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay, so that's why it should be.
Different roles, I would say, different roles, Commissioner, which is not uncommon in our departments.
Okay.
We have multiple roles under the umbrella of a department head frequently.
Okay, well, I was just kind of looking at them two different things, but they have overlapping issues, I think, but I think we need to kind of keep them separate until we do the reorganization, if that's going to be the plan.
Right.
So you may want to pull that one out.
So just to kind of point out, when prior to Rick Frank retiring, he was the environmental services director, and Aaron was the zoning administrator.
Correct.
Under Rick Frank. You know, so you can kind of see how it just
evolved.
The position was combined, but it still is like two different things.
And at that time, Rick Frank, his expertise was the solid waste manager, as well as the department head. And so,
And he did sewer inspections and he did,
yeah, they do multiple, our department heads, depends upon the department, they do more than just actively manage the department frequently. Many of them have wear multiple hats.
Well, I think it's too much for one guy to be running the whole show. I think we should be splitting it up and.
well, let's save this discussion, Greg, till the action item.
Okay.
Yep. So we're going to pull out 5, what was it, 5, 7? Is that 5, 7, and 10? Was that it?
No, 5, 9, and 10 is what Greg asked.
5, 9, and 10. Okay.
My question was on 6. Are we appointing Amelia as the permanent?
Well, maybe we should pull out 6 and 7 too then.
Well, 7 is interim.
Okay.
I think just missing the word interim on 6.
Well, we just got to decide if we want to have as an intern as Houston County Planning and
Well,
Zoning or Environmental Director, one or the other.
Well, the recommendation at minimum would be for an interim zoning administrator, because we will not have one come the end of business day, May 14th.
well, I'm fine with appointing Amelia as the
Interim.
no, it doesn't have to be interim, as the planning and zoning administrator. That's fine.
Just a question I raised. I'm okay with it too, but
Yep.
I agree. I go along with that.
okay.
So we'll just leave it the way it's worded then.
Does she want to do that? I mean, has anybody talked to her about whether she wants to be zoning administrator?
She has background in it, and she is willing to step up to the plate and serve the county in that capacity.
That's good.
I believe she's online. She could answer that.
Does this create like the previous job description that was in the office? And is this something then that actually needs?
You would have to look at that, Carol. that-
EEO?
The job description would have to be reviewed.
So if we make her, Amelia, I'll let you talk in a second, but if we make her the planning and zoning administrator under current job description, does that also make her head of the environmental services? Is that the
shouldn't?
Is that her job description that she's taken over in the zoning?
No.
Two separate jobs.
No, it's two. It's two separate.
And whatever the board decides and determines today, then I will take a look at her job description along with Amelia, and we will have to see where her banding and pay should fall and bring that back to the board next week.
Can we table those two things until next week's meeting? Because I'm sitting there trying to calculate that out. And if there's discussion about reorganizing that particular department area, interim should be the consideration for both of them at this time. But I would like to have that pulled out and brought back next week.
I understand that, Dewey. It's all this is sudden. But I do get the sense of urgency to have Amelia appointed the planning and zoning administrator, because she's going to have to do those duties of building permits and whatnot. But from what I understand, Aaron is here until the 14th of May. Is that correct?
Right.
Through the 14th.
So we could possibly table this. I mean, and this is nothing, no reflection on Amelia at all. I think she'd be great at this, but I understand what Dewey's getting at.
Yeah. Within the department is originally not that long ago a department of 5, and we're currently will be within a couple weeks down to 2 people. We were simply looking for some direction and stability as we move forward in an interim temporary basis as we work through some of these other challenges that we will be having. We don't really have, we have 2 staff members left, and we don't have within the office itself, and don't necessarily, commissioners have a lot of options at this time, if at all, on how we would handle some of those duties other than to assign them to existing staff. And this is just a request to do that.
Well,
Like-
we could actually make number 6 and 7 interim positions as we sort this through after we get more figures next week or something, but at least we have an interim in place for both.
Well, we could still do it next week and get it done before Aaron is leaving. And we need to sort some of this out. I mean, like I said, this was done rather sudden and before personnel had a chance to review it, what was going to be on the agenda. So,
Yeah, hence the request of it being interim and temporary. If you wish to take it off, that's fine. It's just there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and wanted to settle some things so we can move forward with that work.
Well, I guess the only thing I'm saying is that the interim thing would, because if we get into a permanent thing, then you're kind of bound, but I would think that interim environmental services and interim zoning administrator, and then if things go well and we start getting people in, then we look at the data.
So is your opinion to go to interim on both, Dewey?
That's correct, Bob, yes.
but the thing is that we were looking to restructuring somewhat in this department, and
Commissioner, I don't think interim basis would impact that restructuring conversation one way or another. It just offers some stability to go forward with how we are structured right now while the board is examining alternatives. That's all it would do. There is no, it could be changed at any time the board determines it wishes to make that change. It is for an indeterminate period of time. It is not for a set contractual period or calendar year or anything like that.
That was my concern.
well, I think by appointing her as the county zoning administrator on consent item number 6, and pulling the one on item 7 as the environmental services director, because that Rick Frank is going to, I mean, that's why there's the 9 there for Rick Frank to assist in the solid waste part of it. And I think they're definitely going to need some help in that area. And Amelia is going to be busy with just doing the building permits and things of that nature.
You got septic systems too, and
Well, we're contracted with GQ, but she has to help with some of that stuff too. So I guess if we just did 6 and pulled 7 for now, have further discussion, and then we get
on the table 7.
well, we can keep.
I think we should have the word interim for 6 and 7, and that gives us time to sort out where we're going to go. And the word interim, we can decide in the future. And it's not a permanent position.
I think Amelia makes sense as the permanent. Zoning. I just asked the question as far as when we're going to be reconsidering the different departments, including the change in job description and whatnot. The interim works out to give us the option to make all these changes that we're looking at, splitting departments, making sure the job description is correct and everything is in order. It leaves us the flexibility. But before we go any farther, I'd like to ask Amelia what her thoughts are. She's listening in and we're talking about her, so she should have something to say about it too. Amelia. I thought she was listening in.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go.
I am. I guess I was just going to comment that I agreed to this. I am willing to pick up whatever's needed here in the on the temporary basis to keep us moving through the summertime.
But you're okay with the zoning administrator being made interim for the time being while we get things squared away?
Yes, that's fine if that works. I understand the concern was that it was required by statute. So if that's allowable by statute, that's fine with me.
Right.
I don't think it says in statute that it's interim, though, is it? It's either appointed or not. Is that? Not. I'm not asking you, Amelia. I'm asking Tess.
I don't believe the word interim is in there. We just have to have a zoning administrator.
Right.
So,
that's why we can't have it as interim. We have to have it either you're appointed or you're not as a planning and zoning administrator. So we have to leave that worded as is.
So if
she's appointed interim, she is appointed the zoning. I don't think the interim word makes any difference for the statute.
Right. I mean, you're right, Carol. It doesn't. We can appoint her and then we could not reappoint her. Right. So the interim doesn't really make a difference.
Well, it does, depending on how you want to restructure the office.
Yeah.
Well,
or not restructure the office.
Right. I mean, we need to have a planning and zoning administrator. Let's appoint Amelia to do it, to get it covered by statute. And we could wait for 7 and we're going to do 9 and 10 in the action item.
For how long a period of time?
Till we get a handle on what we want to do in the reshuffling in the office. Bob and Teresa, you're going to start up this committee to address solid waste, to look at that closer. So, and like Amelia says, she needs to have this authority to get us through the summer building season. So,
and we got hearings coming up too, so we need to have the right person there.
Yep.
But the word interim doesn't change her position at all. She's still our zoning administrator.
She will be if we do number 6. Yep.
All right. So just so I'm on the right page, Eric is of the opinion that we appoint Amelia, the zoning administrator, no interim. I'm okay with that because she does a great job and I really appreciate everything she does for the county. So I have no problem appointing her as a zoning administrator.
Nor do I.
Deal with it, then we don't have to deal with that. It's just the environmental services that we're looking at making the change as
correct
and whatnot.
Correct.
Teresa, you think it ought to be interim? Or
I don't
are
think
you
the
okay
word
with
interim it makes any difference as far as her role of what she's doing. I just think it gives us a little more flexibility to do some changes with the word interim in it. Okay, I can see Eric shaking his head no, but I think the word interim should be in there. That's my opinion, but I'll go with the majority of the board if you don't think then she would be permanent. We would not even include her in our discussion of restructuring.
No, we definitely would have her included in the discussion of restructuring.
Not if it's a permanent appointment.
We need to have a planning and zoning administrator. She needs to conduct the business of the summer building season. So,
which she would be doing.
because we were appointing her to
Okay.
She'd do it either way, permanent or interim, doesn't make any difference.
You'd be doing it either way.
The interim isn't in the statute. That's what.
We got
Carol, just go ahead, Greg.
Tess, do we got to follow the statute on this?
Yeah.
Well, then we should.
The statute is quiet on that point. It just simply requires that we have a zoning administrator.
That's exactly what we're doing. We're
So-
appointing Amelia as a planning and zoning administrator.
Changes in planning and zoning would then be worked out with Amelia as far as
The whole office as a whole. Yep.
septic and the whole works.
Right. As a whole. Yep.
Would be
Definitely.
with Amelia on how to do.
My question, by not having at this time a department head that's a interim department head, we have all of the issues of general supervision. We have the issues of office administration that would not be addressed if we were not to consider an interim department head at this time, pending the outcome of your, however the future of the department is. Item number 10, or 9, is not as to do department head work. So we do need to have somebody in that role of interim department head, pending any kind of potential restructuring, staying the same, or whatever the board determines it wants for the future of these areas. And so I highly encourage you to have that interim department head appointment during your sorting out and information gathering and your other determinations you may be making. It may only be for a month, but at some point those functions need to be covered. And I believe that Amelia is in the best position of the staff of the department to do that with the grasp of the information that she has. So
I agree with what you said there, Tess, and I'm fine with that. We just have her as interim environmental services, but she's appointed planning and zoning. And you made some good points there, and I can agree with that. So we could keep 7 in there. What I think Greg wanted to pull that, but
No.
we could put 7 in action or whatever. But
Greg wanted to pull 5, 9, and 10.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm 5, 9, and 10. Okay, so that's fine. 6 and 7 can stay in.
This has seemingly turned into an action item.
That's what I'm saying. We should have pulled it. But I think we're in agreement now. 5, 9, and 10 can be pulled. The rest should be good to go.
I'm okay with that. Does anybody want to pull anything else besides 5, 9, and 10?
Moving them into action items, is that what you just said?
Yeah, 5, 9, and 10 are already moved.
Okay.
But leave the rest of consent agenda alone. Eric?
Yeah. Just one question on number 2. Utilize the same format. I assume it's not going to be hybrid. It's going to be either Zoom or in person, correct? I mean,
Zoom or phone.
Okay.
Just like we're doing.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. All right. Just wanted a clarification on that.
The other meetings are in person or Zoom or phone.
Okay.
In person out of it and doing it just like we do board meetings.
Yep. No, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with line item number 5, 9, and 10. Hold to action. A little discussion.
Motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. I hate to ask this. Further discussion?
I just have concern on 4, but I guess that he's leaving us, and I appreciated what he was doing for getting things squared away, and I always enjoyed finding out what was going on. So I hope the new group will continue to keep us posted as to permits and other things that are happening.
All right.
I would thank him also because I have gotten a lot of calls and appreciating his fairness and his following the zoning and explaining why things have to be done a certain way. So I did get some really good comments from my district. Thank you.
Further discussion?
And I just want to express confidence in Amelia and her abilities to fill in and
Do the job.
do the job.
All right. Motion made and seconded. We will vote by roll.
Okay, so for the record, number 6 is not going to be interim. It will just be.
It's stated the way it is. Yep.
Okay. District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Moving on. We will now go to action items. And those that we moved will go to the end of the action items, I think. Action item number 1, consider approving the transfer of $150,000 in airport entitlement funds to the city of Owatonna for their Dagner Regional Airport, repayment due no later than May 15th of '22. Brian?
Good morning, Commissioners. Yeah, so City of Owatonna is looking for $150,000 of entitlement money for doing one of their projects over there. They're a little bit short of funding. This is money that is FAA money that comes to the county. We don't get it until we have a project to spend it. So by loaning this money to Owatonna for a year, we're not out anything. We don't collect interest on it. They can do their project, and at the same time, we have some guarantee we can get that money back so we don't lose any money throughout the cycle. So it's a good thing for the county to do, assist other counties in the future. They can maybe help us. So it doesn't hurt us. So the recommendation, this has been passed through to the Airport Commission, and they agree with it as well.
And we have no major projects coming up that would need this funding this year?
No, we do not.
I make a motion that we approve transfer of $150,000 to the city of Owatonna.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries. Action item number 2, consider approving the change order number 4. Changes to the architectural and structural plans to accommodate the PEMB drawings. Second, to relocate the electrical service equipment. And third, add sand interceptor to the truck wash waste piping.
Yeah, so this item is change order number 4 for our highway building project. There's a variety of items here. The big item is related to the plumbing. So out of the $33,008.11 change order, $23,800 is related to one item that is due to the floor drains and how the plumbing needs to be configured for that. The bulk of these changes are based on building code issues where when the project was bid out for construction, they didn't have all the permits from the state. As the state's issuing permits, there's some minor adjustments that's driving some of these changes. And then there was a couple minor discrepancies on minor issues with constructability of the drawings, the way that they were, like the window sizes. The windows increased in width by 4 inches. So the cost of the materials to buy the windows that are a little bit wider is a little bit more expensive. So there's some minor things like that in here. So the recommendation is to approve these changes.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
It was interesting when reading it over, that one place there, it says the project is the highway shop and the owner was La Crescent Hoka Schools. That was a typo by, what's it called, I guess.
It was, but these are all our shop items, so.
Be nice if we could get them to pay for it. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yep.
Motion carries. Action item 3, consider approving the 2020 EMPG report and request for signatures. Danny.
Is Livy on?
Olivia's not on. This is Brian Swedberg.
Oh,
Olivia
sorry.
is not working right now.
Yep.
So I'm gonna fill in for a little bit. So this is the annual EMP grant that we need approval and signing for. The 50/50 grant is for $18,433.
This is kind of an annual grant, right, Brian?
Yes, every year.
Yeah.
This is some state or federal?
It's a state grant. So it entail basically partial her salary, training, membership dues, some equipment. The grant would be paying 50/50 for.
Technically, it's actually a federal grant. It has a CFDA number. The state awards them, but the money comes from the feds.
State's the fiscal agent.
Yeah. They kind of put the conditions on it though, but the money comes from the federal to them.
Chain of command.
Leave it to Carol to know that. I mean, let me deepers, I tell you. You know all that stuff.
It's what we do.
Yes.
Well, I move for that grant to
Motion made and seconded to approve the grant application. Further report or further discussion.
Who was the second on that?
I was.
Greg.
Well, okay. I'm just hoping they're a little quicker this year for this round because we just got the 2019 or no, the 2019 in 2021.
Really?
So we'll hope they're a little quicker this time. Mm-hmm.
Be nice if we got 2020 and 2021 in the 21, so be a budget improvement.
Uh-huh.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Action item number 4, consider approving the 2021 non-represented pay grid. Tess?
Yes, Commissioners, you have before you an adjusted pay grid for 2021 for the non-represented folks that with a $1 an hour adjustment across all of the various grids, that be for the nurses as well as the 67-day employees that are at the labor rate, as well as the folks out at the drop sites. And the non-represented folks include the IT staff, assistant county attorney staff, folks like Carol, myself, and I think that covers it.
Right. Is there a motion to approve the non-represented pay grid?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the consideration of the contract with Collaborative Design Group for the CDs for the East Steps.
Yes, Commissioners, you folks sent, directed me to work with Brian Pogozinski, our county engineer, with regards to getting matters together to do RFP for a reinforced concrete steps for the east main door to the historic courthouse. We met, we determined that it would be best if we had one set of construction documents that would be bid on by all. I then went and contacted Collaborative Design Group, since they were already familiar with our county buildings, and got a quote for $3,550 to do all the construction documents, including the specifications, the drawings, and they will also address any questions that potential bidders have, so that we have an apples to apples comparison that by which we can make a decision as to getting those steps replaced. I don't know if Brian's still available. But Brian, I'm talking with Brian, I felt that this was a very reasonable amount of money for these documents and this service.
Isn't Collaborative Design the one that did the engineering and the estimate for the grant for these steps?
They did for stone steps. So they had all of the, didn't have to come out. That's why we were able to get it at such a low rate. They didn't make a second visit.
My only concern is that they're going to be over-engineered and end up being costly. I know we have the right to reject any or all bids, but I think if we just had a standard bidding process and had frost footings, concrete, with the options of stamped and coloring and all that. I mean, it's just there's a lot of reputable contractors out there that could do this without having to have a big engineer firm figure this out for them.
Well, this is not a big engineer firm, but it is a physical engineer, an engineer, I should say. When Brian and I were talking, it would be very difficult for us to compare one bid to the next bid. We wanted to have something that was, I don't believe they would be over-engineered. We wanted to have, be able to compare apples to apples and not have to make judgments ourselves as to which design would be better or best. And in fairness to the folks doing the bidding, when we did have, they would have a set of expectations of us as to what our scope of work would be, and we'll be able to hand this to them, say this is the scope of work, this is what we're looking at. And the only thing that is not in here is, you know, we had talked about potentially even having heated steps. We might be able to add that to our to the steps, but Brian and I both felt strongly that we had to have something that was consistent for folks to bid on. It's not just a set of it's pretty significant weight and structure back there as far as size.
So is Collaborative Design going to be asking for input from us on what we want to see in that design?
Sure. Well, we just told them, said we need, how much would it cost to come up with reinforced concrete specs so that we had something that was apples to apples. And that's something that is going to have some longevity beyond, 5 years, that'll stand up to the elements. And whatever input you want to have in that, absolutely, we can send it to them. We're not looking at anything over-engineered, but we don't want anything under-engineered as well.
Well, I guess the bottom line is that we have the right to reject any and all bids too. So we just got to decide whether we want to spend $3,500 or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a protection for the county from the point of view that, yeah, there's lots of reputable contractors out there, but we'd like to have standardized frost footings, a certain amount of steel as far as the rebar, standard steps. I mean, I know it's all standard stuff, but if you don't have a set of plans, if you don't specify what they're going to put in, maybe one guy uses half-inch rebar and one guy uses 3/8, or
So we're going to get that detailed, Bob, on how much they can use. So it is going to be a real detailed engineered deal.
It's a fully designed set of steps, footings, rebar. Brian, are you listening?
Yes, I just got back here, so I'm not sure what I all missed, but I am here now.
We're talking about the contract with collaborative design for the steps so that we have consistency in the design. Some discussion is we can just tell them what we want, and I agree, we have good contractors in the area, but we don't have consistency in regard to the design if we just say we want this and put in frost footings and steps with rebar. We're looking for your opinion as far as design.
Yeah, I would recommend that the board approves the proposal that Tess submitted for, construction design group. It gives us a uniform set of plans that everyone's going to be bidding off of. After the bid, the county has the right to reject the bid or accept it. And then depending on, if the contractor says, hey, this looks like it's way overbuilt, they can always put a proposal back that the county can review and look at a change order. We can, consider it. But it gets everyone bidding on the same item up front. So, and then if there is a change, we can always go back and whether go back to, the collaborative design group or whoever to analyze that to see if the change is a good change or not. But you definitely want to have the bidders bidding on the same exact specs and design. So that's what this does. And for $3,500, it's well worth that cost.
So if we have some contractors that are saying that this is way overbuilt, we can address that at that time, or
Yeah, you can always look at a change order. I mean, it's similar to our building project, approved today. There was,
a change order. Yeah, I get it. Yep.
It's that same thing. There's always that possibility of a change order. I'm expecting that the plans are going to come back with a reasonable design that everyone's not going to say it's way over designed or under designed. But if it is that way, we can look at it and we can decide how we want to go forward.
So we can look at their proposal before we set it out on bids, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve. I did talk to Brian about this in advance to know that we could change things before we put it out for bid.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item of business is to determine the floor covering for the commissioner's remodel. I'm going to be walking around a little bit for this.
We're going to get the view from live action.
So this is, I don't know how do I switch to full screen? Are you guys able to see this full screen?
Can't we see the desk? Yeah.
That's where it says right now. It sits backwards right now.
Oh, okay. Yep. This is the part we're going to replace, correct?
That's the area where the
Carpeting will go.
right.
They'll actually come forward a little further than that so that they have nice clean lines.
Yep.
No demarcation.
Now, there's two kinds of carpet on the. Does anybody know how I can switch mine to a full screen?
Yeah, if you go to the top right-hand corner, it says view.
View.
And if you click view, there's different options for how you can see your screen. One is full screen, or there's a gallery or a speaker view.
Speaker view. Well, that's you.
Go to full screen.
There's various options there. You can just try different ones and see what you like.
If I talk, does it come back to me being full screen? No.
Well,
it depends on what speaker view you're in, what view you're in. If you're in speaker view, yes. But there's also a gallery view or a full screen option.
I got speaker view, gallery view, and exit full screen. That's my three choices.
Yep, so you could try different ones and see.
If I exit full screen, what happens then? I go back to Zoom.
Bob, we can actually, when we set it, when you're talking, it'll go to the active window. So us as the people watching your screen or watching you on your camera, we'll set ours to speaker view and it'll be large for us. And that's all that really needs to happen. You don't need to change yours because it's your camera. You're not sharing your desktop. You're just pointing your camera at it. So that's fine.
Okay.
Did that make sense?
If I start talking, will it go to, no.
When you talk, if us as the people who are watching you are in speaker view, it is large screen for us. So we see it, large screen. Okay?
Regardless of what you see.
If we do full screen.
Are you seeing full screen right now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
You were on it all the
I'm
time.
not, but I'm not in speaker view, and that's okay.
I'm in speaker view.
It's just a preference of how you prefer to see your screen.
Okay,
That's the area. There's our desk right now, sitting over there.
that's good.
Here's different carpets. And I don't know if you can see colors or not.
Yep.
Yep.
The stuff that's in
Blue.
Tessa's room, it's the general stuff around the courthouse.
Yep.
Here's what's in here now. And here's what we can get from the company that would match this in color. They're both brown, but they're different. So we could take, you see the line where there's the difference between the wood floor and the carpet? We could go across that line and put in that carpet. So it's both brown and just be a different over to the door. From wall to wall, it's a question of if we want to do just the area that's in wood or if we want to go all the way to the rail. I don't know how this is working out.
It's working fine.
I'm going back to my chair now.
So the quote you have in front of you for the $5,781.60 is for the brown squares, and that was a quote to the rail, so that we had some, it didn't look so muddled, if you will. And then I really don't recommend us using our, what I call our courthouse standard in there. It, unless you wanted to do a whole room of it, I don't know that it looks very nice. next to the other brown, but we could. We do, just so you know, have 40 yards of our courthouse standard, that gray blue. But as we move through different rooms, as we're redoing the flooring in the building, we have those set aside. So they will be used somewhere. But I do think that the brown for $5,781.60 is a nice match. I think it'll look very nice. And that whole suite back there is in brown right now, including the finance offices and the connecting, the other rooms that connect to the commissioner's room. So that's what we're looking at. Thanks to Craig and Greg for getting that room together. Appreciate the work that Andy's put in there as well. And so we'll be painting the room and putting the flooring down. I don't know the exact lead time on the flooring, but I can get back to you on that. Depends upon which flooring you choose.
Well, Tess, the 5,300 is from the gallery rail to the back of the room.
Just a little bit in,
Behind it.
on the commissioner's side of the gallery rail to the back of the room.
Right.
And that's a total of about 64 square yards.
I think it's 80 square yards is what I'm looking at here. The sheet that we have
Okay.
I think it blends in.
is 80 yards of carpet.
I think it blends in well, and I agree with what Tess said, that doesn't contrast, and then I think it's that $400 bid is fine.
5781.
57, sorry.
I like the idea with the rail because that'll be a dividing and it doesn't look haphazard. My concern or question was, is Hiller's the only one that had this, or was it the only one that bid, or what?
We used, I called Hiller, as we've used them with, in the courthouse before. They're on the state contract, and so we have used them. They're also have been bid. I think it's less expensive going through SSC Hiller rather than State Hiller. They've their RFP there, they came in even lower. So that's who we've gone through.
I'll make a motion to go with the $5,781 for the carpeting from the rail to the back of the room or front of the room, whatever direction you consider it.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Just so I understand one thing, Tess, the floor in here is uneven. I mean, when they took it apart, there was some plywood that was not underneath what was the original platform. Is that included in their quote as far as putting down the plywood, or is that an additional charge?
There is a subfloor and floor prep built into this
Okay,
quote.
good. That's a good question. Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next action item is consider approving the abatement policy per Lucas. Now, that was a $5,000 abatement policy. Some expressed concern and wanted to go 3,000. So that would be the discussion.
Well, we could always change the number, but
Okay. I just want to point out, in the summary that I sent, there was just the one that was over $3,000, and that was actually a veterans abatement. So we didn't really have any of the, normal type abatements that were over the $3,000 mark. Then we just had the bigger one. Just wanted to point that out because there was, the $3,000, there was one over, and that's why it was a veteran's abatement.
You want to switch it to 3,000, you guys?
I'm fine with that if that's what the majority wants.
All right. We need a motion on that?
Wait, are you okay with going to 3,000?
Yeah, my numbers were 25 to 3,000, but 3,000 will work for me.
Teresa?
That's fine with me.
All right, so somebody can make a motion.
I'll make a
I
motion to
think
go
Greg did.
3,000 for the abatement cap.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded to approve the abatement policy with a $3,000 cap as far as not having county board approval. Further discussion? Teresa, I stepped on you. What were you saying?
I was saying in advance, we don't need it ahead of time if we can approve it. We need to know about it in the long run, but.
Well, we'll still get summaries on all of them, correct, Carol? I mean,
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not an action item.
Okay.
Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
Motion carries. Action item 8, now this is the consideration, the approving of ordinance number 9, the changes for the park rules and regulations at Wildcat Park. That's those changes we talked about during the public hearing, so I don't know if we need to go over them again. In which case, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes.
We move to action item from the consent agenda number 5, initiate a competitive search for an environmental services director.
I think we should table that for now, and until we have some more meetings on restructuring, if at all.
We have the interim director appointed through Amelia.
Right.
We want in this bigger rush.
Right.
Everybody okay with tabling that till a future date?
Yeah, I can agree with that because like I say, I want to see what the future department will look like before we make some big ones.
Yep.
Teresa, you okay?
Yes.
Greg?
Yep.
Okay. That is tabled till future reference. From the consent agenda number 9, action item, hire Rick Frank as a 67-day employee to assist with the administration of the Houston County Solid Waste Ordinance and provision of recycling and solid waste services, to assist with other duties as needed at an hourly rate of, this is a misprint, it's not 30, it's $50 an hour.
Mhm.
So Rick would assist, but he is not going to, it's not an in the office, sitting in the desk kind of a thing where he's there all the time. It's just as an as needed assistance, right, Tess?
Yes.
You're muted, Tess.
My apologies. Yes, I spoke with Rick a couple of times, and of course he's pretty busy in his retirement. He's happy to help out as needed on an on-call basis. Does not want to be tied to a desk. I can't, say that I blame him. He has a lot of things that he is doing with his family right now, but he is happy to help on those unusual situations that might arise and to give advice as may be helpful. I think that would help department quite a bit. Instead of staffs might have to otherwise spend a considerable amount of time trying to figure out maybe the where to go for the information or how to get through it, and they would be able to call him up and get that backup from him. And so I was pleased.
So both Amelia and Holly will be able to request advice, help, or assistance in a certain whatever issue comes up.
That and and Aaron said, if Amelia has a question or anything like that, or Holly, he's happy to take their call as well. But I know he'll be busy with his new position. But I think this gives them then the adequate backup that they will need to get through whatever might come up in the interim.
This will be at the direction of Amelia then?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Holly would be at the direction of Amelia, but there's certainly things that Holly, especially on the solid waste side, would may need to speak with them about.
Well, I think it'd be good to get him in there to help us through this mess and get things lined up. And maybe if we're going to switch it around, he can help us with that.
Yep, we haven't discussed that yet, but certainly that may be a consideration as well. He has some background. He has considerable background. That would be helpful.
I make a motion we approve Rick Frank as a 67-day hire.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
Are we going with 67-day or as needed?
Well, it's a temporary casual employee. It's not, 67 does not mean that we hire them for 67. That is a cap we have on it by statute, so.
And just so I'm on the right page as far as the motion, is that at the $50 an hour?
Yes.
Greg, you seconded, is that, or Dewey, you seconded, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Motion made, seconded. We've had our further discussion. We'll vote by roll.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes. Motion carries. Consent agenda item number 10 to action items, approve the contract with Winona County to supplement feedlot obligations.
Commissioners, I asked Amelia if she would join us for this conversation. See if she's on there.
I'm here.
There you go. Okay. So Amelia reached out. Amelia is our feedlot officer. She will be overseeing this agreement. She reached out to her counterparts at Winona County and made this arrangement, and we believe that it's in the best interest of the county to move forward with that. It is, as everything else, it's not a permanent relationship. It is just on a temporary basis as set forth in the agreement there for the feedlot inspections. Amelia, do you want to discuss that?
Sure. So what we'd be looking for out of Winona County this year is just to complete our feedlot inspections. Along with that, they're doing all the follow-up paperwork that's required per our agreement with the MPCA, and then also doing all the data entry that corresponds to that paperwork.
Have you started some of that, Amelia, already? The inspections, or not? Haven't you hadn't started yet? Maybe.
No, I was not able, or I have not been able to get out on any sites at all. 25 is our minimum.
Okay.
that the state requires us to do in the calendar year.
Okay.
And we have a
Number
grant.
25, is that the inspections of all the lots? Is in other words, some of them won't get checked for a year or two? How that works?
There's a minimum that, yeah, go ahead, Amelia, you can answer that.
I had a hard time hearing you, Dewey, but yeah, so the state requires, as part of the program, that we inspect 7% of our feedlots every year. And there's 300 and, well, I think the number that they were using at the time that we signed the agreement was 354. And so that works out to 25 inspections a year. And that's the bare minimum.
Very good, thank you.
And that's a random selection, Amelia?
I don't know if you recall, so every 2 years we sign a delegation agreement with them, and that outlines some of our strategies, not only for inspections, but registrations and permits and everything. But within the inspection portion of that, we outline specific sites that or not specific sites, I shouldn't say that, specific like characteristics of sites that maybe we are looking to inspect. And a big portion of that is the One Watershed, One Plan program, which most of the county, well, now all of the county, I guess, will be encompassed into one program or another. I'm not sure what stage the La Crescent one is in. But I have a list kind of formulated that I planned, but I will make a better one here and send that off to them, so they won't be making the decisions on whose site they will go out on. That will actually be information that I send to them.
Yeah, so you'll still have, some control over it. You're just going to have Winona County help you with some of these inspections and reports and stuff.
Correct. We are in the final year of a registration process, and fortunately I have like 75% of that done. So there will be a little bit of that, but just having them kind of take this off my workload will help a little bit.
Oh, definitely. And I think it should be noted that this is temporary especially just for this year to get us through here. So I don't have a problem with that. I know I had some concern about Winona County. I could just get any calls from farmers saying, why is Winona County inspecting this? But I can explain the situation and tell them this is just a temporary fix till we decide.
And Amelia is running the program and will remain ultimately responsible for the program.
Correct.
And I've the feedlot officer up there actually was down on sites with me as she was training in, along with a state agency person. And I guess I don't feel that we had any different reception when I had them with than what I've gotten when I've been out on sites alone. So
They're not too busy to handle our extra work, are they?
they actually have 2 different staff members that handle these, and so they have stated that they have the time to be able to take on these few.
Well, I think I'll make a motion. We accept the contract for a temporary basis to have Winona County assist in feedlot regulations.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion?
And well, I just wanted to say too, this will be in our further discussion on department, future of the department too. So, yep.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else?
Just intern, so.
Thank you, Amelia. Further discussion? Otherwise, we'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Yes. Carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
That takes care of everything on the agenda, with a note that we have tabled the competitive search for an environmental services director till a future time. Next item of business is board updates. So, Eric, you're first on my screen, so you can go
Well,
first.
it says board chairman first. It says here. No, that's fine. I don't really have much to. I tried forwarding you guys an email from Brian about he's looking at other budgetary items in the highway shop, and he's looking at getting refurbished furniture. It's restored to like new condition. I guess you can hardly tell that it's refurbished. And so he's finding savings, and I want to commend him for that. He's got a rough quote of $65,000 on some of the furnishings, and he's still looking for some quotes on the fuel systems. I'll try to get that sent to you. My first try didn't work, but
Yeah, I didn't get it.
no, it didn't go. It said it didn't go, so probably too much stuff. I don't know. Anyway, that's all I had, is just that some of these outliers on the highway shop we're strongly considering, and it's all of it's been under budget from what we budgeted, so that's a good thing. That's all I have right now.
Julie.
Pretty quiet up here in the North Country, so just kind of keeping up with things and learning as I go.
Curiosity question, did you go to that meeting with regard to horse thief?
I could not get in on the Zoom. I don't know what the problem was. But I did not get in. It was tabled after a short time. Teresa kept me abreast of it. That's about it.
Okay. And Teresa, will go to you.
I did go to the whole meeting, and it was rather lengthy. It made sense. We had 18 residences that wanted variances done, and rather between the attorney and zoning office, they decided it would be more cost effective for the county to do, since all the variances are the same, to do them as a group, because by the time we charge $500 each, which only costs the board, and also the fact that we have to publish it and post it and do mailings, there were over 300 mailings just for this hearing. So anyway, that's why they went with this route. And then they had public hearing on it with concerns from residents down below about the erosion problems. But when people actually apply for a permit to do anything, they have to have a professional engineer come up with an erosion plan or an environmental plan as part of the getting a permit. So that seemed to address that, but after much, two of the people on the Board of Adjustment had not had time to review the information, so they actually recessed the whole meeting till next month so that they could review the information again or in time for the meeting. So no action was taken at this point. So that was
discussion besides, you know, from the variance point of view, they talk about the septic, they talk about the grade requirements, and
that was all brought in. That's why they would need, as part of their planning process, they would need an engineer to come up with their, again, the water, septic, and erosion problems. So,
but the
variance would cover that they wouldn't have to go for a variance hearing if they have to move the septic to another area or whatever. That would be all part of the permitting plan. So at this point, it was tabled.
Was the original variance request just for setback, or was it for everything? Setback, grade, septic, and the whole works?
I don't have my papers in front of me. There were 4 different variances. Maybe Amelia or Aaron, who were at the meeting, could. There were 4 variances included.
All right, I'll stop over there when I get done here.
Okay.
There were 6 total.
Dwelling, okay.
Reduced setback, the impact, bluff impact, actually 2 sets there. And then the sewage and the side variance, that's what I have.
Right.
Well, the bottom line is this is a Board of Adjustment
Decision.
so
Yeah.
we have no say in it.
No. I'm just curious from the point, I'm curious from the point of view that if they get massive variances for all 16 parcels and the Board of Adjustment approves it, but it goes against a lot of the aspects of the current ordinances, what's that do to us for future?
That's exactly right. and then
they
all these people get a break on the variance costs. I mean, that's like us out here in the country. If we all pooled together and to get a variance on our properties, can we do that, or?
There is no ordinance that says you can pool people together. There is no ordinance that says you can do that. So I don't know how you guys are going to do it, but I wish you luck, because you can't. You got 14 people and you're going to charge them 14 people $500 total. So what are you going to tell that Sennis that you guys okayed 5 minutes before and you charged him $700? How are you going to offset that, or how are you going to handle that? Because you can't charge one guy $700 for a variance and then give 14 people one for $50. That ain't going to work. And there is no ordinance that says you can group variances together, because there's no 2 variances are going to be the same.
Well, these 16 parcels would all get the same variance so that they could go for their permitting process.
Okay, I get one of them a variance, so I build my shed right next to Eric's ground, right next to his line. All my water runs down on Eric's.
Well, they have to have a plan to cover all those.
That's why they got to get a variance.
Okay, well.
I agree with Greg's argument from the point of view that the 16 properties are paying a combined total of $500. If only 15 had applied and then the 16th comes in separately, the 16th is going to pay $500, but the other 15 shared $500 between them.
Right.
There's an inconsistency here as far as how the general public is treated. I know it makes it simpler to have them all at the same time, but they all should have paid the same fee.
Yep.
But then it gets to be a profit thing for us. I think the efficiency of getting it done at one time, because if you're going to repeat the same thing over and over and over, I kind of thought that this would help efficiently so everybody knew what was going on, instead of Joe got it here. Well, if you say the same thing to all 16, they all know where they're at.
Sure. But it goes to what Eric had said. If all the farmers in Houston County get together and say, we want a variance on setbacks for our farm buildings to be 50 feet and to be 10 feet, and we're all doing the same thing. Let's have every farmer pay their $1 to cover the $500 cost, and we'll do it all at the same time. Same kind of deal.
Yeah.
It isn't fair to the individual that wants to do it.
No. And
that was
this is a go ahead. I'm sorry, Teresa. Go ahead.
That was a Board of Adjustment decision that they would want to do them all at once.
No. that was proposed. It wasn't. I don't think the Board of Adjustment made that decision. They tabled it. But anyway,
moving on.
I think this is a problem that was passed to the county by and I'm not trying to blame anybody, but La Crescent zoning board or whatever for the township. Is that correct?
We do La Crescent Township zoning now,
Right, but they plotted this out when it was under the.
years ago. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
But at that time, they couldn't be less restrictive than the county was anyway. That was, I mean, we always had to follow the county zoning and be more restrictive.
Well, I drove up there. I don't think there was any rules or regulations for any of them to build on that hillside. I'm sorry, but it's ugly up there.
Yeah, okay, moving on. Anything else, Teresa?
I've had some conversations with, and I kept Dewey and Bob informed about the bass boat tournaments and all the complaints we're receiving. But there again, we can't do anything about it. And La Crosse County doesn't want to do anything and working with us. So my next idea was that we could talk to the Corps and see if they could put in a no wake zone, but I don't know how far that'll go. But I can understand their concerns, but I don't know what Houston County themselves could do about it.
Well, we could just make the boaters drive on the Wisconsin side of the river. I mean,
We don't have somebody down there to enforce that. That's the problem.
A long string of buoys in.
yeah.
No wake to the left. All right. That is a problem, though. I mean, I've talked to Mark England about it and whatnot.
Yep, me too. And that's basically what I had. Oh, we had department head meeting yesterday, which went very well. But John, you've heard his report already, and I don't think there was anything that we needed to bring up separately.
Okay.
It was a good meeting.
Okay.
Except
Great.
I want them to paint the boardroom purple, but nobody would go along with it. Viking colors is what I said.
No, we can't have that.
Dewey would like that, I know, but.
Green and gold would be perfect.
Well, it's going to be white, everybody, so.
I think we make the east wall and the west wall gold and the north wall purple and the south wall green.
Sounds like a plan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Greg, what do you got?
Pretty much Teresa talked about the department heads. That went real well. I had a finance with you this morning. That went pretty well. Things are going along pretty good. Outside of that, I just got a few phone calls on that variance in La Crescent, and other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Yep. Okay. My report, I also was at the finance committee. It was interesting, some of the things that they had brought to our attention. A couple of the questions I had, we get reimbursed from the state or the Fed on some of our expenditures, but they're late on some of this. I mean, some of our stuff, like they said, like we heard that, we're
The one we just did, yeah.
2 years behind on our reimbursements, and the same thing is true for health and human services. They do the spending and then they have to apply and get the money. Now, we had an issue here a couple of years ago where we had department changes and whatnot, and we charged from the wrong department, the state of Minnesota. Now they want their money back. But we asked, well, if we got to give the money back because we charged the wrong account, can we put it to the correct account? Well, it's too late for that. It's okay to pay back, but it's too late to make any changes. So it's their rules that you got to follow. But otherwise, like Greg said, we're not looking too bad as far as the finances are concerned, and really it's really early in the year to make that decision. The other thing I'll mention is the Botcher Park. The Boy Scouts were down there over the weekend and put in the cross buck fence, and they did a really nice job. The proverbial saying safety in numbers seems to work out really well with that crew, because we had Boy Scouts, parents, uncles. We had people down there like you wouldn't believe, and they got that fence done really fast. In fact, they got done quick enough that there was 2 piles of wood chips down there that for future reference to put on the trail, that they went ahead and put that on the existing trails as well to designate the trails and to make them more ambulatory as far as people are concerned for walking on them. While I was there, the scoutmaster says that she has 8 or 10 boys that are looking for projects for their evening.
I got some pasture fence they could fix there.
I'm not sure how that works out for your project. If it's along the bike trail, that's going to come along. But they did a really nice job, and if the county has any park projects that would fall into line with what an Eagle Scout can do, they would appreciate the opportunity to participate.
I don't know. Send them down to Wildcat. We need some painting done. We need picnic tables painted and them shelters painted. Be awesome if they'd help us out.
Yep. That would be a possible project that they could handle.
I was going to bring up too that Dick got hold of Valerie Green about that locust tree with the long thorns, and she recommended taking it out. So he's going to go there later in the week and take it out. And also he's working with Audrey from Public Health for that grant for the 2 picnic tables and a bench. So they're working on that at the same time. I thought he was going to be here to talk, but he's not. He's downstairs.
Be careful with that locust tree.
Yeah, it's terrible. I saw it. I actually sent everybody a couple pictures that I took. I should have taken one of the tree, but it's terrible. They're long thorns. Yeah.
Need heavy gloves for that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of gloves, this is just a point of humor. I went to Winona for Earth Day on Thursday to help Hiawatha Valley Mental Health clean around their biggest housing facility. And they were picking up brush and garbage and whatnot, and they gave everybody gloves to be safe with. It was those rubber gloves that you pull on and you can snap.
Oh God!
One of those last when you're pulling weeds, first weed, rip the shit.
Oh boy!
Humor now, but I still got cuts on my fingers that haven't healed. Anyways, that's all I got.
At least you didn't find a body like they did in La Crosse, huh? They're cleaning up.
But did you hear the report this morning with regard to Marshall, Minnesota?
No.
A 1st grader that died from COVID with no prior conditions.
Wow.
So that's kind of scary as far as
Yeah.
kids now. I don't know if it's that new virulent variant or whatever, but it was a sad thing.
I got a question I'd like to ask Allison or Carol. Have you got any more information on this money that's coming down the pike on what it can be used for yet? Anything new? If not,
Not anything new. It sounds like there's going to be webinars later this week and next week. Treasury has given really no more direction than they had a month ago. But they're hoping they'll get it worked out. We should be getting the money. They have to send it to us within 60 days of the adoption of the bill. We did get an email that said we have to have a DUNS number, we have to have a SAMS number, we have to have our payment information set, and I forget the 4th thing, but those are all done. Oh, that our bank can actually receive that amount of money. Because they said smaller financial institutions may not be able to accept the amount they'll be sending, but we don't have that issue here. So the steps are all done here. We just wait to get the money and then hope that they've actually made some final decisions as to how we can use it.
Have we been told how much money we're going to get yet?
$3,607,355. Well, that's the preliminary, and they're also saying that that's not final.
Okay. But that would be in 2 installments.
Right.
Okay.
Is there a deadline when we get our first installment till you spend it?
60 days. Oh, no.
It all has to be spent by December of 2024. I don't think,
Wow.
yeah, I don't think there's anything on the interim. You just have to report what you've
right.
spent, and it all has to be spent by 2024.
Okay.
Well, hopefully we can be creative as far as how we use some of that money.
I'm hoping so.
Yeah, and use it to the best to benefit the most in the county. Yeah.
But Allison, have you heard more about the state money that they've been talking about for business grants?
I have not heard an update on that. There was a bill at the state level to possibly give the counties more money that would need to specifically be used for grant relief for businesses again, just like the latest round that we did. I have not heard for sure on that, but I do need to catch up on some emails. So.
So Allison or Carol, when we do these business assistance, do we ask them to provide documentation of how they've been affected? Like, do we look at their Schedule Cs or their tax returns to see the downfall, the reduction in income?
It depends on the grant program. For the second half of the CARES Act, we did require that they show like a Schedule C or a Schedule F, but that was just to show that they were a legit business. We do ask them to write a paragraph about how they have been negatively affected, but we did not require, exact numbers, although some businesses did go above and beyond and provided that anyway.
And would that also include like the Schedule E for the rental properties?
Rental property owners have never been eligible for any of the grant funding that we did. There is a program currently open at the state level that is not only for renters, but also for landlords.
But that has nothing to do with us.
That has nothing to do with us. And the reason for our decision on that was that there are some rental property owners where it is just more of a pass-through. Like there are some businesses that rent from themselves. So we didn't want to, duplicate grant money there.
Right. Okay.
I did have some landlords reach out, and I did forward the information on that new state program to all the landlords that I still had their information that had initially reached out. So.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, does anybody on the board have anything else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
No, I haven't done the closing public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was ahead of time. I'll take mine back.
I appreciate the sentiment because I think we all agree. Is there any public comment from anybody? I see a few names I'm not used to seeing. I see Liz is still here if she had a comment, or Teresa AK if she had a comment.
Yes.
That's Tess.
That's Tess.
Oh, I'm looking. Sorry.
Already.
Oh, I understand. That's not Alaska. Okay.
Better wear big gloves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dick just got his orders as far as wearing gloves for that tree.
Yeah. He said, have you told him? I said, I already gave you a report.
I don't hear any public comment from anybody, so Greg?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Very good.
Okay. I thought everybody did second at the same time. Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. Further discussion? None. We'll vote by roll.
District 1,
Yep.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5.
Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.